Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And thus far, the 2040 season is going very well on the field. As we sit here on June 1st, our A's are 37-20, one of the best records in all of baseball, and a 7-game lead on the Texas Rangers in the American League West. We are definitely a win-now team. Goal is to reach the playoffs this season, also upgrade at first base. And over the next 4 seasons, including this one, we need to build a dynasty. We have won 2 out of the last 4 World Series titles at this point. And we have been a playoff team 8 of the last 9 years, hoping to make it 9 of the last 10 years and 10 of the last 12 years by the end of this season. And even though we are off to a very strong start this season, we have tweaked a couple of things since we finished up the last episode. Just wanted to let our loyal viewers and the worldwide scouting department know what we're thinking. We had been platooning at first base with Amari Alcindor playing against righties and the youngster Luis Godina playing against lefties. We are actually going to give Godina the opportunity to be our everyday first baseman. He's hitting .323 with 5 doubles, 2 homers, and 16 ribbies in his first 93 Major League at-bats, putting up a 115 WRC plus for us. And he's still viewed as a top 100 prospect at the age of 23 years old. Unfortunately, Alcindor is kind of between what he was when he first came up 2 years ago and the disappointing performance he had last year, hitting .252, 8 doubles, a triple, and 3 home runs in 131 at-bats, 104 WRC plus. So both of these players are half a win above replacement at this point. But given that Alcindor is more versatile and higher quality defensively, he's higher quality defensively. I'd say he's more versatile in the infield. Clearly, when we look at Godina, you can see he can play just about anywhere, but not as high quality, particularly in those corner outfield spots. But given that Alcindor, who's 3 years older than Mr. Godina, hasn't really put a stranglehold on the position, we're going to see if Godina can perhaps perform a little better playing every day. You look at the ratings, Godina a little better with contact, a little better with power, a little better with his eye, a little better avoiding strikeouts. Gap power is the one area where Alcindor's better. So we're going to move Alcindor back into more of a utility infielder role. And the other thing that I will mention as far as the other platoon situation we had going in center field is that Sergio Palomares is officially on watch. Joe Harmon, who's got the less playing time side of the platoon, going up against left-handed pitching, hitting .303 with 3 homers and 14 ribbies in 89 at-bats. 135 WRC plus and a 1 WAR for the 25-year-old. After an outstanding start to the season, Palomares is really coming down to earth. The batting average is dipped to .263. Does have 30 runs scored and 21 ribbies, so he's been pretty productive offensively. 115 WRC plus and a 1.5 WAR. But this is a guy who not that long ago was hitting over 400, so he's definitely been struggling of late. Still pretty productive this season and a pretty good platoon. Blade staff has noted over the past several episodes that center field is arguably our most significant weakness as far as our offense and our everyday players. Hard to disagree with that, so there could be options to potentially move Harmon into more of a full-time role and or make a trade to help in center field if Palomares' batting average continues to dip. And last but certainly not least, a small move involves the franchise. We have moved Jake Ortega, who is our DH this year, up to the 2 hole in the lineup and dropped Juan Pimentel back to number 3. Pimentel, last year's Rookie of the Year, having an even better year this season, 321 average, and already has 15 homers and 52 ribbies just 2 months into the season. 155 WRC plus and a WAR of close to 3 already. As we talked about last episode, Ortega still a very productive player, but he's wrecked physically. He's going to be 33 in a few months, and his ratings, most alarmingly, are deteriorating. That being said, he's still hitting 282, has scored 42 runs, driven in 34, and he is leading the league with 28 stolen bases, and he is incredibly efficient, having successfully stolen 28 times in 29 attempts. So he's put up a 119 WRC plus for us. I think perhaps the disappointment in Ortega in some of the comments has gone a little bit too far. As I noted, he is leading the league in stolen bases, and he still does have a 119 WRC plus. But for a player with a 146 WRC plus over the course of his major league career, he is certainly not what he used to be. He is looking for a massive contract extension at this time, 6 years, $206 million total, so an average of over $34 million a year. I think it would be incredibly difficult for us to sign him to that type of contract. And given that he'll be 33 years old by the offseason, he's wrecked physically and he's deteriorating, I think it would likely also be irresponsible if we were to sign him to that type of contract. So I think it is very conceivable that Ortega is playing his last months in an Oakland A's uniform. Kind of potentially a bummer that a guy who is a 2-time MVP with a WAR of over 50 already may not get to spend his entire career in Oakland. He's now in his 10th major league season, but as we've talked about a lot over the past few episodes, he's missed over 100 games in 2 of the last 3 years, and he's not getting any younger. Commentary from the Worldwide Scouting Department, as I noted, is kind of turned definitely more negative on Ortega over the last several episodes, ranging from don't sign him to a long-term contract to only give him 1 year extensions, which I think would be pretty hard to do given what he's looking for right now, but things can change, to even trade him right now. And we've gotten feedback from many members of the Worldwide Scouting Department, Patrick DeBonis, Paul West, Sean Gratton, Not My Four Ply, Expedient Falcon, all sharing various perspectives, which I get. The one thing that I don't see myself doing right now, though, is trading him. As I noted, he's still leading the league in stolen bases, still 20% above average offensive player, and making $10 million is still a relative bargain for what he is. He certainly is a guy that we could, if we wanted to get a little riskier, pivot back into a outfield position come playoff time if we needed to strengthen the lineup. But the main goal is to keep a bat that is still above average at everything in the lineup as much as possible. We are, as I mentioned, a win-now team. So I'll certainly keep an eye on things and keep an open mind, but I think it's unlikely that we'll trade him before the trade deadline. I think the team is better with Ortega in the lineup than not, even if he is only playing a DH role for us this year. And we'll see if maybe we can catch a little lightning in the bottle in terms of his performance. He can get that WRC plus up another 10, 15, maybe 20 points over the course of the season, given that although he's not what he used to be, his overall offensive running defensive profile is still such that he's one of the better players in all of baseball. But we'll continue to monitor what Ortega does and what the rest of the team does over the next month as we head towards the midway point in the season. As I noted, one of the better teams in baseball. Only the Nationals have a better record than us right now, but both Minnesota and Chicago are in a pretty tight battle with us for the best record in the American League at this point. As I noted, the franchise, Jake Ortega, leading the league with 28 stolen bases, and the young starter, Mike Blumenshine, having a nice bounce-back year from an injury-plagued year a season ago. 2 significant stints on the IL as a rookie, and he started just 11 games, going 1-3 with a 5.20 ERA. He's already started 11 games this year, and he's 5-0 with a 2.63 ERA. So much more productive this season than he was last year, and hopefully Blumenshine can continue contributing to our performance on the field, since we do have him signed for the medium to long term at this point. And in addition to Ortega being at the end of his contract, Chase Dora, who we picked up in a huge trade with Cincinnati several years ago, looking for a contract extension. Given the excellent young pitching we have and the money that the soon-to-be 32-year-old Dora is looking for, $23.2 million a year over 5 years with a player option for the final season. I think it's even less likely that we'd bring Dora back than we'd bring back Ortega, but certainly would recognize at this point that the likelihood of bringing either of those guys back is not high. And the first week and a half in June has went reasonably well. 6-4 over our last 10. We've won 3 in a row. Still have the best record in the American League, although the lead on the Rangers has slipped to 6 games. Pimentel and Selvey, who finished 1-2 last year in the Rookie of the Year voting, are 2-3 in the American League in ribbies. Ortega, with 32 steals, continues to lead the league. Did just recently get an updated scouting report on him as of just 4 or 5 days ago. And I guess the one positive thing is that his gap power might be a little higher than we thought it was. Still, certainly probably borderline between 60 and 65. 116 WRC plus, so he has slipped a little bit, but still very efficient. 32 out of 33 on the base paths. And I think overall still a guy that we want in the lineup, even if the likelihood that this is his final year with Oakland grows with every day. Blumenshine looks like he had 2 good outings, although he did suffer his first loss since we checked in on him, but a 6-1 record with a league best 2.44 ERA for the lone lefty in our rotation. And I mentioned at the start of the episode that Mr. Palomares might be on watch to losing some playing time to Joe Harmon. Unfortunately, Joe Harmon going to be banged up for the next couple of weeks with an injury. So we brought up the left-handed hitting Steve McIlvaine, a guy that we traded for at the start of this past offseason with the Cubs. He certainly has not lit it up in AAA, hitting .251 with a 99 WRC plus. Does have 12 homers and 42 ribbies, so a little pop in his bat. But a pretty versatile player, can play all over the outfield, decent speed, decent bunter, and a decent, albeit not exceptional, bat. So he'll give us at least a guy who we can use as an occasional pinch hitter and sub in the outfield for the next week and a half, 2 weeks, while Mr. Harmon is hopefully healing up. And Chase Dora, who, as we talked about, was just looking for a contract extension about a week ago, has some shoulder subluxation issues that have a pretty material impact on his pitching. Says he's only going to be out for a week, but we're going to be very conservative with him and just put him on the IL. Part of the reason we can do that is Federico Arriola, number 26 prospect in baseball, 23-year-old, 8-1 with a 1.89 ERA for us in AAA. You may remember he's not willing to sign a reasonable extension with us, which, given that he's 23 years old and a potentially incredible pitcher, I kind of understand. But we have been keeping him down to start this season in AAA, given that he did have some service time last year, and we wanted to ensure that his service time this year was low enough that we basically control him for the next 6.5 seasons. We've gotten to that point, but certainly he doesn't have anything left to prove in AAA. He's put up a ridiculous 4.7 WAR through just 14 games at that level this year, after putting up a 6 WAR a year ago in a full season in AAA. So who knows what we're going to do with the 6'9" right-hander once Dora is healthy. But as I noted, his service time is low enough at this point, even with the time that he had a year ago, that you can see he's set to make the major league minimum not just this year, but 2 years after that, and then have potential for arbitration-eligible seasons. Clearly, that can modify and change depending on how the service time for him goes, but like the fact that we've delayed things long enough that in theory we've got him for the next 6.5 years in the majors under our team control, given that doesn't seem like we're going to be able to sign him to a more reasonable extension like we did with both Camunez and Blumenshine, or even the type of extension that we signed Jesus Saldana to. So we may be mixing and matching with some of the young pitchers in our rotation, but with Blumenshine, Camunez, and Saldana locked up, still feel that even if we let some of these guys roll off, the Doug Weisses and potentially the Ariolas of the world after they spend 6-7 years with us, we still can hopefully piece together an outstanding rotation for many years to come. And as you know, you can never have too much pitching. Daniel Blanco, who actually started this year on the IL, another injury, a strained hammy for him. He's going to be out for about 6 weeks. Blanco certainly hasn't been great this year. ERA of 4.87 over 20 1/3 innings of work. But even with Dora coming back, having Blanco on the IL will likely mean that we can keep Arriola up for the near to medium term. I think the big question is just going to be which 5 pitchers we end up with in the rotation. Camunez, who is signed to an extension, as we talked about, and certainly a starter of the future, has been working out of the bullpen. And when Dora is finally ready, we'll have to move him, Arriola, or somebody else into the bullpen as well. So a little bit of an embarrassment of riches right now with the high-quality starters that we have. But given that we'll likely be moving on from Mr. Dora after this season, and if we decide to potentially pursue bringing back Mr. Ortega, we might have to trade Doug Weiss as well. I think it's a problem that just through the nature of the budget limitations we face here in Oakland will ultimately resolve itself. Team continues to play great baseball, 80 games into the season, closing in on the midpoint of the year, 9.5 game lead on the Rangers with a 52-28 record for our A's, who look well positioned to hopefully win over 100 games this season. And we've split our last 2 games against the Tigers, so as we get to our mid-season review from Mr. Fisher, 53-29 record, 646 winning percentage, first place in the AL West as we sit here 82 games into the season. He's excited by our team record. He's generally pleased with how Luis Godina has played at first base for us. Unhappy that we have not acquired a Gold Glove winner. Overall, he's good with our progress towards the goals he's set out for us. Very happy with our overall performance. But the final evaluation, of course, will be dependent on how we do over the course of this season. As we sit here on June 29th, 9-game lead in the AL West over the Rangers. Jake Ortega, 45 stolen bases midway through the year, closing in on a career high for him, and he's running away with the AL lead in steals. Darnell Selvey, who's a little banged up right now, going to be out for most of the next week with a pulled ab. Third in the league in OPS and second in the league in batter WAR. And Blumenshine has dropped back to third in the American League in the ERA race. Before we get into looking at our players specifically, look at how the team is doing. And our 53-29 record is actually 3 worse than Pythagorean expectations. We've had a winning percentage of .600 or higher in each of the 3+ months that we've played so far. First in the American League in runs scored, and you can see we are first or second in every of the primary offensive categories in the American League, except for strikeouts where we're tied for 4th, and home runs where we're lower end of the middle of the pack in 9th. Pitching has been outstanding as well, second in the American League in runs allowed, and we are in the top 6 in all pitching categories, third in defensive efficiency, second in zone rating. So this Oakland A's team is definitely firing on all cylinders right now and ranked first out of all 30 teams in the majors in the latest power rankings, despite the fact that we still are a game and a half behind the Nationals in the battle for the best record in baseball. And we are actually tied with the Twins in terms of winning percentage for the best record in the American League, although technically we are, I guess, half a game up on them, or 1 game up on them technically. We're 2 games ahead of them in the win column, but 1 game behind them in the loss column. But still having a very strong season. And as we do our midseason review, we'll take a look at that outstanding pitching staff first. Jesus Saldana, off to a really rough start this year, has been pitching better of late. Has the record up to 4-5, but a 4.63 earned run average. Still has a 1.5 WAR on the season, but definitely not as strong a season as we were hoping for from Trey Saldana, who has been a very good pitcher for us and a 2-time All-Star and a world champion back in 2038 over his first 3+ years in the major leagues with us. Federico Arriola off to a really nice start in the majors, 2-0 with a 2.45 ERA. Has walked 7 batters in 11 innings, so that's a little bit of a red flag, but still doing fine. Doug Weiss, the winningest pitcher on our team this year, has 10 wins midway through the season, already matches what he did all of last year. 10-2 record with a 3 ERA and a 2.4 WAR. As we've talked about, he's one of the guys that we haven't been able to get an extension signed for, and he'd be looking for over $200 million if we gave him a 10-year deal at this point, given that that would take him into his late 30s, and he's already fragile physically. 10 years is certainly aggressive for what we might be offering him, but even 6 years, he's looking for an average of around $22-23 million a year to sign for 6 years. Been a very good pitcher for us, but as I noted, we've got a ton of depth, so he may be the guy who we end up just letting play out his options in his arbitration years with us, and then hopefully getting a compensatory pick for down the line. Dave Baumler, 3-5 record with a 4.54 ERA, would be the obvious guy to take out of the rotation with the way that he's performed this year. Unfortunately, he is the only captain personality class that we have left on this team. So wanting to ensure a clubhouse that is in very good shape, might be inclined to keep him in the rotation, even though he's arguably not one of our top 5 guys. Team chemistry is ecstatic right now. Baumler is without a question a team leader. We do have a lot of other leaders around, as you can see. No negative personalities at this point, although there are a growing number of bad relationships with our veteran manager, Kip Wells. But overall, have an interesting decision to make with Baumler. All else being equal, I'm inclined to kind of ensure we have someone in that captain role. And we've talked a lot about the lefty Blumenshine, 6-2 with a sub-3 ERA for us this year as he bounces back from that injury-plagued rookie year of 2039. Chuck Huntley got off to a really rough start as our closer, has been pitching better of late to get his ERA under 4. Has 18 saves for us and a WAR of over 1. High volume for Mike Orozco in the stopper role. Not really going that well this year. An ERA of close to 5, and he's given up 12 home runs in 85 innings pitched. WAR of less than 1. His Sierra is not that far off where it's been the last couple of years, and his BABIP is 30, 40 points higher than it's been the last couple of years, so maybe he's gotten a little bit unlucky. But given the depth of pitching we have, as much as I love the stopper role, we've got some setup guys that are having incredible years, and it probably makes sense to share those innings a little more evenly going forward. Jake Mendick, a guy we picked up in a trade when the offseason began, has a 1.35 ERA as a lefty out of the pen for us, so doing a nice job there. Has given up 3 homers and 15 walks, so his Sierra significantly higher than his actual ERA, and he's only been a little bit above replacement level. Another lefty, Kevin Carmichael, only 19 innings pitched, but a 2.84 ERA. Similarly, the righty Jonathan Scherer, only 18 1/3 innings pitched with a glittering 1.47 ERA. So I think maybe getting some of these guys a little more pitching time and a little less for Orozco might lessen the burden on him, let him perform a little bit better as he's on his way to leading the league in games pitched for a 3rd consecutive season since we put him in that stopper role. And he is wrecked physically, so probably going to be a little more careful with Orozco. Hopefully get a better performance from him in the second half. Youngster Ernesto Comunez has only started 1 game for us, but a 6-0 record with a 3.54 ERA over 53 1/3 innings for the number 32 prospect in baseball. Certainly making a compelling case that he should be in the rotation at some point. Alan Hunsaker, who we brought back this year, hasn't been great, an ERA of 5.5, and he's basically been a replacement level pitcher for us for the 2nd straight year. We're hoping for more from him. He's a guy whose roster spot could definitely be in jeopardy, not making a ton of money, and with team options for the next 2 seasons, it's a very tradable contract if and when Dora and Blanco are both healthy. And Mike Bennett is up with his 2nd stint with the team, 5.62 ERA over 8 innings. The 23-year-old lefty does look like a guy who could be an important part of our bullpen in the future, but right now he has not been particularly impressive in the limited options he's gotten this year while we've had pitchers banged up. But feeling really good about the depth of the starting rotation, the quality of the starting rotation, and ultimately the depth and quality of the bullpen too. This is a pretty good-looking pitching staff, and we also need to keep in mind that our number 2 starter, Chase Dora, and an important reliever, Daniel Blanco, are both on the IL right now, along with Juan Campos, a guy who did start the year on the major league team for us because of Blanco's injury. So there are a lot of good options for the pitching staff at this point. So, probably not a ton we need to do to try to improve the pitching staff at the midway point of the season. Might be a few things we could do with the everyday players, but I really like our lineup as well. We'll see if everyone is performing up to expectations. Catcher Jorge Mendoza got off to a really slow start. So, although the batting average is only 241, he's actually been hitting a lot better of late. Does have 15 doubles, 9 homers, and 44 ribbies through 253 at bats. And he's pulled his WRC plus up slightly above league average, 1.6 WAR on the season. The left-handed hitter is an important member of our lineup, and good to see him hitting better over the last couple of months. Can kind of see that if we go into his 2040 batting splits. You can see a 091 average in March and hit just a $182 in April, but was surging with a 302 average in May and has hit 253 here in June so far. So his two best months of the season are the last couple of months, even though he's dipped a little bit here in June compared to how he performed in May. Hidetaka Ogata, the outstanding defensive backup catcher for us, hitting 250 and 56 at-bats. Ultimately, we've got a prime prospect at catcher down in AAA, similar to Ariola. Jonah Richards is a guy who's looking for a ton of money, so we don't mind keeping him down there to manipulate his service time as well. But at some point, Richards will be competing with not just Ogata, but Mendoza for playing time. It's not inconceivable that when we get to September roster expansion this year and the playoffs, that Richards' left-handed bat will be important for us to have in the lineup somewhere, possibly at first base. Although Godina doing really nice in his major league debut, hitting 303 over 188 at-bats, 118 WRC plus for us, has taken over first base nicely. Amari Alcindor, who he was platooning with, hitting 250 over 144 at-bats, slightly above average offensively. Still think there's a lot of value in a player like Alcindor as a super utility guy for us. The young second baseman Chisen Iwata, our big free agent signing this past year, hitting 309 with a ridiculous 31 doubles, 4 triples, 9 homers, just 78 games into the season. Scored 66 runs, driven in 54, and a 142 WRC plus and a 3.4 WAR for our new second baseman. Also has been running a bit more of late. You may remember when we checked on him last episode, he had run only 2 times and was successful just one of those 2 times. So he does have 5 stolen bases now. So running a bit more, although not incredibly efficient, with a 62.5% success rate. Third baseman Juan Pimentel, last year's American League Rookie of the Year, 294 average, 22 homers, 22 doubles, 18 homers, 64 ribbies, 134 WRC plus, and a 3 WAR on the season for our third baseman. Shortstop Alejandro Landin, another guy having a very productive year, hitting 291. Only 7 home runs a year after tying for the American League with 40 of them. But overall, still putting up a 131 WRC plus. Has scored 47 runs, driven in 49, and a 1.7 WAR on the season. So for a guy who is a very good defensive shortstop, to still be a well above average offensive player is a lot of value for that $5 million that he's making. So we really like our catchers, and we really like our infield too. Haven't even talking about our former starting shortstop, Andy Toribio, who's moved into a utility role for us this year, hitting 219 over 105 at-bats. Only has started 26 games for us, well below average offensively and slightly below replacement level, which is disappointing. wants to be in the starting lineup, so he's unhappy with both his performance and his role on the team. That being said, when you look at the massive amount of talent we have in our infield with Landine at short, Pimentel at third, and Iwata at second base, and I think the lowest WRC plus from any of those players is, the 131, I believe, that we have from Landine. You can understand why it's difficult for the likes of Toribio, Alcindor, and even Godina to some extent to get a lot of playing time, because those three primary infield positions are really locked down with guys that are excellent offensively and very good defensively. And you can see just in the position ratings here on the left-handed column how strong of a defensive team we've actually built. Everyone on this team is pretty good at fielding their primary positions. So maybe in a perfect world, we want to upgrade a little bit at first base or catcher, but honestly, with the left-handed hitting Jonah Richards in the minors for us, and we're playing him at third right now, not that he's ultimately going to be a third baseman for him, but just to give him as much versatility as possible. We've got the number 5 prospect in baseball who's hitting .322 with 21 homers and 54 ribbies in AAA for us, 4.2 WAR already. Certainly believe that we could easily help our first base position and or our catcher position by bringing him up. As I mentioned, I think it's very conceivable that come September and come the playoffs, Mr. Richards will be our starting first baseman at the very least against right-handed pitching, giving us another left-handed bat in the lineup. And not that we're hoping for injuries to Mendoza or Ogata, but he could certainly help us at catcher if we needed. So not that first base and catcher are big holes, but I think we've got a better solution to help at either of those positions right in our AAA team than trying to go and trade for somebody. So probably not a lot to do trade-wise with the catchers or the infielders. Turning our attention to the outfielders, our Darnell Selvey, runner-up last year for Rookie of the Year to his teammate Pimentel, going to be banged up for another 5 days with a pulled ab. We're sitting him out. Having a really nice year, .312 batting average, 21 doubles, 17 homers, 66 runs batted in, stolen 9 bases, and put up a 162 WRC plus, 3.9 WAR, already close to the 4.1 that he put up over the 4 months he was with us in the majors last year. Joe Harmon, hitting .302 with 3 homers and 16 ribbies and 106 at-bats, 126 WRC plus for us with a win above replacement as a part-time platoon center fielder for us. Sergio Palomares, 254 batting average, over 213 at-bats, does have 18 stolen bases and a 106 WRC plus with a 2 WAR. So although the batting average for Palomares has never really been what we hoped it would be, he still has been a productive offensive player, and it's his birthday, so we're certainly not going to take Gravedigger out of the lineup on his birthday. Right fielder Arturo Uresti is the guy who's probably having the most disappointing season of any of our outfielders, and that says a lot. The .227 average isn't great, but still has 11 homers and 40 ribbies. He's also walked 65 times, so his on-base percentage is almost .380. Still put up a 115 WRC plus and a 2.1 WAR, despite having a pretty significant drop down from a year ago when he had 37 home runs and 100 ribbies for us. And last, but certainly, or hopefully not least, is the franchise Jake Ortega. And he's improved his WRC plus to 125 since we checked in on him at the start of the episode. Has a 2.6 WAR midway through the season. 20 doubles, 5 triples, 6 home runs, scored 57 runs, driven in 48, a ridiculous 45 stolen bases midway through the season, 45 out of 48 on the base paths. And playing him at DH, even though he's wrecked physically and almost 33 years old, he's played 81 out of our 82 games, and we actually had benched him for the one game he didn't play when he was banged up with a very minor injury, not wanting to push things. Hitting 291, OPS of over 800. So, although Ortega is not what he used to be, leading the league in steals, and he is literally one stolen base away as we sit here on June 29th from tying his career high of 46 that he had a couple of years ago when he led the league in steals and won his second most valuable player award. So certainly a different player than he's been in the past. Doesn't have the same kind of home run power as he used to. Not that he was ever a huge home run hitter, but he did top 20 4 times in his career with a high of 31, only 6 this season, but on pace to have around 40 doubles and around 10 triples. So still pretty good at legging out the extra base hits and obviously stealing bases as well. So as I think about our lineup, I can't say that there's a ton that I would change here either. We'll certainly keep an eye on who's available on the trade market. Clearly, injuries could change what we might need to do over the next 5 or 6 weeks till we get to the trade deadline. But at this point, I'm feeling really confident in our team and really confident in our roster. And if the team stays healthy and well, I don't know that there's necessarily going to be a ton for us to try to improve on as we get closer to the trade deadline. Take a quick look at the trade block, and if there was a guy to go after, it would probably be the veteran center fielder Walker Jenkins. Really good defensively in center field, and still a productive offensive player with a 105 WRC plus this year. That said, he's older than Ortega, and he's also wrecked like Ortega, and he's making $19 million. He would consider a trade to Oakland, so that's nice that we're now on the list of teams that experienced veterans would consider a trade to, but don't know that he really adds too much for us. Shortstop Steve Carpenter would be an upgrade defensively at shortstop, but probably a downgrade offensively from some of the players that we have in our lineup. And more importantly, he's out for the rest of the year with a torn ACL and making a lot of money in the final year of his contract. Can't imagine there's going to be a lot of demand to take that contract off of the Padres' hands. Take a quick look at some of the higher-end pitchers who are available. And Eric Wingert, top starter available. Some real negative personality traits for the 30-year-old. Is 6-2 with a 3.08 ERA this year. Making a ton of money, though, $39 million in the last year of a 5-year contract. Given the money he's making, his negative personality traits, the unmotivated personality, and the fact that we love our starting pitching in terms of quality and depth. Not necessarily a ton that we're going to be looking to do in the trade market, at least with the guys who are on the trade block. But as I noted, it's something we'll certainly keep an eye on over the next 4 to 5 weeks till we get the trade deadline. But feeling good about the Oakland A's here as we close in on the end of the month of June. If we keep this team healthy, I don't think there's any reason that we can't finish this season with the best record in baseball. And if we're healthy and well, hopefully be pretty well positioned for a long run in the playoffs. But we've got another 80 games until we need to worry about the playoffs. And we'll find out how we do at the end of June into July as we approach the amateur draft in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching. and hope you have a great day.